On this third video, I'm going to show and describe some of the people of the area during the time of the mining and the production of the iron, and also people later on who was still involved with the LaGrange plantation. And wanted to thank my nephews, R.D. Wallace and Victor Wallace. They gave me some artifacts that I'm going to attempt to put on the video. They found R.D. owned property just on the hill above the furnace, and so he found some of the artifacts there, some of the old nails and shovels, and a real interesting piece of he found was a piece of the old railroad track that LaGrange had put in the 1880s. And so I want to really thank them for that, and I want to dedicate this to R.D. He was planning on coming by and looking at the what I had, but he had a real serious operation, and when he did come by, I just happened not to be here. So he's feeling much better, and just want to thank him and Victor. This is a finished product of the process of making the pig iron through the iron ore furnaces. This old piece of pig iron has been around here all my life in what we call the outbuildings here, and I've noticed that there's an R on the pig iron itself. I don't know. They had a rough and ready furnace, but of course that wasn't in this part of the county. I don't know what the R stands for. It could be the company that it was going to, so they could keep track, but I just don't know. But this is a piece of the pig iron that came from this area, probably the LaGrange furnace, because my dad in his day had more contact with the LaGrange or the Clark, especially LaGrange, than any other part, any other of the furnace. R.D. was supposed to come by and see my exhibit, but he's had a very serious operation and really doing much better now. And I want to dedicate this video to him for sending me this material, and also appreciate the Victor has sent. But this is a shovel from the this is slag pile area of the old furnace. This is nails that came out of the old buildings, and I'm not sure what this is. It's probably just maybe some piece of slag left from the process making the pig iron. I'm not sure, but all of the old nails and things come out of the barn, stables, the furnace, and whatever. This is what I really appreciate that R.D. found is the old piece of the railroad track. Now this is the railroad track from Danville to the furnaces at LaGrange at Stridley, and it's compared to a regular railroad track here. So you can see, I read once in the Railroads of Tennessee, and I can't find my article now, but that the LaGrange Danville Railroad had the narrowest gauge of any railroad in Tennessee at that time, which was probably in the early 1900s. Speaking of the different eras of the furnaces, this is just a few samples from the 1880 Stewart County federal census. This is just the LaGrange furnace area here, and this is starting out at Mr. James Kennedy. A lot of anyone that knows anything about the census knows that there's a lot of misspelling. But anyway, I think that was Kennedy. He's Mr. Jim Kennedy. His wife Amanda, Susan, his daughter Susan, his son James. James Mullins, he was 30, a boarder, and he worked at the furnace. He was from Alabama, and Mr. Kennedy was out of Pennsylvania, and he's also laborer. Now, if you notice, a lot of the people here were from Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, places up north that had a lot of iron industry in their past. And of course, they had to move when they were shut down in their areas. They'd move here, or if they would find a better paying job, they would move. But you see that Mr. Kennedy was out of Pennsylvania, Mr. Mullins was out of Alabama, and then J.M. Brown, he was out of Pennsylvania, and he was a clerk at the furnace. You had Edward Carter was a boarder. He was from Ireland. Many of these people are from Ireland, and this is 1880 census. You had R.C. Carter, a boarder. He was 28 years old. He was a physician. He was from Ohio, but his mother and father were from Ireland. And then Hiram Lane, he was a boarder. He was out of Ohio. They needed the expertise a lot of times. Okay, Mr. Tyree Robertson, 50, he was out of Illinois. He was a collier, a charcoal maker. He was 50 years old and was probably receiving a fairly good wage at that time if he was the head collier. Mr. Isaac Titsworth. Now these are the family, and all of these are boarders, and they were Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia. Mr. John Sheridan, he was a manager at the ore pit. He had his own servants. He had boarders which was staying with him. They were from a lot of them from Ireland, and his wife and she was from New York, but parents born in Ireland. He was from Ireland, so you can see they were kind of staying together, but he was the manager at the ore bank. Then you had Dr. H. Bates. He was 26. He was a boarder, and he was a physician. He was out of, he was born in Tennessee, and his dad New York, his mother Tennessee. But then you had J.B. Folsom, fire superintendent, with the hauling of the charcoal and with the dangers around the furnace, you had to have fire superintendent. You had to have being trained to put out the fires. All right, you had Mr. G.C. Rolls. He was a boarder. He was an ore bank manager. He was out of Tennessee, and which is kind of unusual for someone with that position. Engineer at Fargale, 33. He was out of Ohio, but his parents were from New York. Blacksmith. What I'm getting to here. J.T. Forsyth, 29, out of Ohio. He was a stock receiver. But now all of these people were in the Clark furnace area, and if you see the end of Clark, 175 households in the Clark, Tennessee, or Clark furnace area. You think about that area now, which would be probably in the area of Lower Asbury down to the Clark Furnace area, and then towards McKinnon, which would be the Eclipse Furnace area, which would have been Eclipse Furnace area. Some of the people living there could have been listed in this Clark Furnace area, because the Eclipse Furnace was just in the very just across the Houston-Stewart County line in 1880. But there's 175 households just in the Clark area during that time. Now I'm sorry, there was 80, from 86 to 175 households. So about 90 households in just in the Clark Furnace area. Now the LaGrange Furnace area had 85 households, but if you look in both of them, you had a bunch of boarders in every one of them. So there was many people that lived in the area that had many hotels, big houses or whatever, but they had many had boarders. They had quite a few physicians in just these. I think it's like maybe 3 or 4 I've looked at it, maybe even more, in this area of the LaGrange and Clark Furnace area. But you're talking about 80 to 90 households, and the amount of people would have been enormous for this area compared to nowadays. This completes this series on the iron industry of southwestern Stewart County, Tennessee, 1830 to 1943. And if I have one more video at this time on YouTube, it's making wooden barrel hooks. And it was a movie or a video I made about 2002. My uncle Clarence Spurgeon and other men in the area during the 30s, well, earlier than that, even up to 1943, would make these barrel hooks out of saplings that they would go out into the woods and cut down, bring in, and go through the process of making them, cut to a certain length, shipping them, and was a supplemental income. He wanted to show his nephews and his sons how they did that, so he made his own hook bench. He rounded up tools where he could get them, and he would show anyone that came around to how that was done. So I was really grateful that I did get it on video. So I hope you watch it also, and thanks.